everybody, welcome to Ask an Architect. We are here today with Corey Clayborne from Wiley Wilson down in Richmond, Virginia. Super excited to have him on the show. Corey, welcome to the Ask an Architect show.
Glad to be here.
Start off today, why don't you give the people the 77-second bio rundown of who you are?
Man, all right, so a proud Hokie from Virginia Tech, loud and proud. We were always ranked in the top 5 in the country year after year in architecture. So if you're looking for a school to go to, go ahead and put your name in the hat for Virginia Tech, and I'll give you a reference there, so you'll be good. Work in an architecture firm in Richmond, Virginia called Wiley Wilson. I've been there over a third of my life, which is pretty rare for somebody my age. So this is my, just finished my 12th season there, working on number 13. So I love what I do, and happy to be here today, Nick.
That's perfect jumping off point. That's exactly where I want to start. 10 years plus at one firm. Yeah. Especially in this day and age, that is super rare, super unheard of. Why have you stuck around for 10 years? What's made you stick around, and why has that been beneficial to your early career?
Yeah, I think that's an easy answer. It's the people. It's the people which makes the firm. So despite what you see as far as firms putting work on the cover of magazines, it's the people that are there to embrace you, that really care about your career growth. They're going to push you through the whole internship process. They're going to push you through the ARE process, and they're going to help you achieve your goals. And so that's one of the things I really found at Wiley Wilson, was that they really helped me grow into a leader.
You can't say enough about the team. You know, so many folks focus on the projects or the portfolio or the name of the firm, when in actuality, a lot of your enjoyment and your success and your future depends on that team. And you know, it's not only how well you fit as a team member, but how you contribute and how you collaborate. You know, we do all these group projects in school, and it's a lot of group work, but it's not the same when you get out there. I think there's a different team dynamic when there's a hierarchy and when there's a real project involved.
Yes.
And I think how you fit into that team is critical to both your success and your enjoyment, really. So Corey, let's talk a little bit about the projects that you've done at Wiley Wilson. Tell me what kind of work you do.
We're a firm that really focuses on the government sector. And so I would say 60% of our work, roughly, just kind of throwing that out there, comes from the federal government side. And the remaining 40% would be local and state government work, as well as a little bit of the private sector. I would say some of the highlights of my career was doing currently a Veterans Care Center. We're doing 2 of them in Virginia to serve our veterans. So there'll be 120 bed skilled nursing facilities that will serve as some of our veterans' final resting place. And so that one means a lot to me, because you know, I really support the armed services, even though I did not serve. But it's a great way to be able to use your skills and your talents to be able to give back to those who have put their life on the line for us. So,
that's a great example for you to start with, because a lot of people would hear that you do government work and think, well, gosh, that's not the chicest, that's not the sexiest work to do. I don't even know if I'm interested in that. But here you are, 10 plus years, loving every second. So what makes it exciting for you when it's not the flashiest or the sexiest project in the world? What gets you out of bed in the morning to work on that type of project?
Right. It's the challenge of knowing that even though it's not the quote-unquote sexiest project, it could be a small toilet room renovation. But as an architect, you come through design school thinking of new, innovative, and creative ways to enhance or promote architecture, if you will. So it's really finding that little nugget of gold in whatever project that you do, to be able to exploit and say, yes, I did this, and you can leave your name on it.
Yeah, so it's surmounting the challenge of whatever that challenge is.
Exactly.
Corey, let me ask you, has your work ever appeared in CRIT, the Journal of AIS?
No, but I'm about to be on your segment that we're filming right now.
That's right, CRIT, get it now. It's hot off the press.
That's right.
Corey, let's talk a little bit about Richmond, Virginia, and then by way of Lynchburg. You came from Blacksburg to Lynchburg to Richmond, right?
Big differences, yes.
Big differences, but a lot of folks coming out of school look at New York City or San Francisco or Seattle and think those are the hot spots to go to.
Sure.
Why is a smaller marketplace like a Lynchburg or Richmond a great place to start out and a great place to grow? Maybe even like Chattanooga or Portland, Oregon. What makes those cities just as good, if not better, for young emerging professionals?
Sure. I think every city has its pros and cons. And as far as my story, I was never intending to go to Lynchburg. I actually had offers from the Northern Virginia area, so DC, that kind of market, which I would consider a big city. Also had offers from Virginia Beach, which was a little too close to home for me. I was trying to spread my wings and fly a little bit, if you know what I'm getting at. So I had an interview in Lynchburg. They actually took me out to lunch. That was the game changer. And so food is the key. If a firm takes you out to lunch, you know they're serious about dating you. And so they took me out to lunch. I really enjoyed the people at the interview, and so I decided to give it a shot. I'm not sure at that time, back in 2004, it was ever intended for me mentally to stay in Lynchburg for an extremely long time. But once I fell in love with the firm, I was like, no, I don't want to leave here. And I started getting plugged into the community. That's one of the benefits about being in a smaller community. You can get very well connected and actually make changes that you can see. And that was important to me, just growing up and knowing that with my position as an architect, I wanted to be able to enact change in the community. And so from there, I stayed there for roughly 6 years and ended up getting a huge promotion, which put me in our Richmond office, which is a little bit of a bigger city. But RVA is still kind of small. You can still leave an imprint there too.
Absolutely. So, I think that last point is really fascinating, that by being a smaller market, maybe you've had some opportunities much earlier in your career. When you jumped from Lynchburg to Richmond, and that being a promotion for you and that giving you some new opportunities. You know, sometimes those opportunities exist in the smaller markets and they're just not there in the hyper-competitive places of San Francisco or New York or Miami or something like that.
Or you could work in a firm that has 50 interns.
Absolutely.
So all gunning for the same position.
Yep. Let me ask you a little bit about Virginia Tech. So we have a lot of folks out there who are either in high school looking at architecture schools, or they're in undergrad looking at going to grad school.
Sure.
Why is Virginia Tech the best place to go to architecture school?
I can't believe you're really asking me this one, Nick. I thought it was...
I'm a UVA grad, man. As far as I know, there is nothing in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So tell me more.
Well, let's get real right now. Well, Virginia Tech is the best school, so I just thought to put that out there. So if you're looking, again, I've already offered it once, I'll offer it again. If you need a recommendation, be sure to hit me up.
Now we link up his email here, get a recommendation from this guy.
That's right. And so just a little bit about myself and the culture that Virginia Tech had. Is more of a blue-collar culture, and that's the way I grew up. I didn't come from a very wealthy family. My dad was a blue-collar worker. He still is today. I grew up on free and reduced lunch. The one thing I will say is that we didn't know we didn't have a lot of money growing up, because the parents showered us with love. And so you didn't really realize it until you got older. You started making your own money, you start progressing your career, and you look back, you're like, whoa, we really didn't have a lot. But to fast forward past all of that, when I visited Virginia Tech, it has that blue collar background culture. If you're familiar with the football team and the lunch pail, that's right, the lunch pail, that's just that symbolic nature of that culture. We pack our lunch, we go to work, we get dirty. And so when I went there, I fell in love with that culture. And then on top of it, the architecture program is perennially ranked top 5 in the country for architecture. So I knew I could go there. I wasn't convinced I wanted a master's degree in architecture at the moment, but I knew I could get a bachelor's degree and still accelerate my career with the 5-year BR. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned, not necessarily going for a master's in architecture. I think that's interesting. You're working on an MBA right now.
Yes.
And, a lot of folks are out there thinking about what's the next step for my education after undergrad. And a lot of folks with 5-year BArcs go on to do an MArch, and a lot of times I think maybe rounding out those skills with an MBA or a law degree, or maybe just a master's in some other specialty, gives you an opportunity to give you a more well-rounded perspective and offer skills beyond what all of your competitors may have. We all have architecture degrees.
That's right.
In architecture firms, but not all of us have MBAs, and not all of us have law degrees, or not all of us have some specialty in a science. So those types of things could be hugely valuable in a firm.
And I think you're spot on with that, because architecture, it is a business. And I think in my experience working with other architects, they are horrible business folks. I mean, they just make horrible decisions. And so just understanding the basics of business, the basics of negotiation and contracts, and those are all integral parts in being in a firm. And if you want to own your own firm one day, I sure hope you have just a little bit of a background there. You can learn through the School of Hard Knocks. That's great, because that's where you get the most experience. But if you can prevent yourself from scraping your knees when you don't have to, I would recommend it. And so the well-roundedness part, I really like what you said there.
Yeah, and you mentioned the business side. What's interesting about Corey is you're also heavily involved on the volunteer side.
Yes.
And just looking back at your resume and knowing what I know about you, you've had so many broad experiences in the volunteer realm, and they've all kind of piggybacked on one another. And you've gotten to a place right now where you're actually not just a volunteer, but you're a very successful volunteer in terms of some of the line items that on your resume. Can you talk a little bit about your growth as a volunteer?
Sure, and it all started with the AIA, and I wish I'd been more involved in AIAS in college, but I was out busy partying and doing things that college students do. So as I grew up, I got a personal invitation from the former national president, Helene Dreiling. This is back in 2004-ish or so, who personally invited me to join the AIA and to get more involved. And so the reason why I throw that in there is because a personal invitation always helps when it comes to volunteering. And so from there, I started small. I was on the local AIA board for Blue Ridge. Me and a couple of close friends, we started the YAF chapter, which was a huge accomplishment for us. We were, mid-20s, and that was something that we could say we left our thumbprint on the profession at that time. And so from there, it's continued to building relationships, and just evolved into things like the Planning Commission, for example, just continuing to expand your networks and having a heart to give back.
So Corey's being a little humble right now, so let me outline it for you. Starting off with AIA Richmond, or AIA Blue Ridge, where you did some volunteer work. Now you're current president of AIA Richmond.
Yes.
Right? Starting out with NCARB as a licensing advisor for Virginia, serving on some committees, right?
Yeah. That's where me and you met.
Intern think tank, founding chairman, and now you're on the licensing board for Virginia. So what I'm trying to get at is you started small. I love that what you said there. You just started, because that's the way it is in even a lot of business pursuits. You just start and you build from there. But what I love is that your volunteer opportunities have built upon themselves to where now you're pretty established as a volunteer. I mean, you have some pretty high ranking roles, and I think that's really cool that you can grow not only as a professional and as a business person, but also as a volunteer. And you have more and more impact the farther along you go too.
And some of that is just being at the right place at the right time. You know, some of that stuff was never a pursuit. Like being on the Planning Commission was never a dream or a goal of mine. There was an opening that came up. I got invited by one of our city council folks and my pastor to join, and I put my name in the hat, and it's been an amazing reward. But all that service I'm having right now, it all came from all the previous stuff that I had done. So it all kind of culminated to that one thing.
Yeah.
So great experiences, and I think if your heart is in it, the opportunities are going to come.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, I'm going to take an opportunity here to promote the AIS a little bit, because I think sometimes, you know, in first, second, and third year, it's hard to see the value of just getting involved, and you know, where is it going to take you long term. But you got to start somewhere, and I meet so many people at AIS who started in their first, second, and third year who are now presidents of their chapter, or who have made connections that now have fantastic jobs at large, successful firms, or have really cool positions outside of architecture in a traditional sense. Yeah. And you just never know what connections you're going to meet along the way, or where that path is going to lead. Yeah. But you got to start somewhere. Yeah. And I think, you know, hopefully for many of you out there, AIS is that perfect place to start. So Corey, let's wrap it up with, how do we define the Corey Clayborne brand? What does that mean?
Man, I would say leaving your thumbprint on the profession and the community in such a way that is better than you found it. And so that's a really, really big thing to me. Finding a way to change your community, whether it's through mentoring or helping your friends get into decisions where they can be influential, whether it's a political position, where they can act change and making better school systems, or all those kinds of things. You know, architecture is just so much more bigger than just designing buildings. You can use your skill sets to really be great advisors, and the way we solve problems is envied by most people in the world. They want to be able to solve problems as architects, and so using that ability to change your community, that's where I'm at. So
thank you so much, Corey. Thanks for stopping by the Ask an Architect show. Hope you guys got some value out of this. Want to give a quick shout out to Natalie Newman, our digital media director. Natalie, thanks for everything. Give a quick shout out to the people, because we love you so much.
Natalie in the house.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Woo.